She moves like a quiet promise. Before the day begins, Rosa pauses in a doorway that knows her every hurry and every small triumph. She kisses a strap the way some people kiss a photograph, as if the act itself can wrap a wish in cloth. A single worn shoe waits on the floor. A packet on a low table is folded neat and small. In that smallness is everything she gives, not to be shown, but to be kept safe outside. The city breathes awake. She steps out with Tiko tucked under her arm. And for a moment the morning feels like a brief, private benediction. She hides more than a lunchbox, she carries a promise. On the bus, she counts coins the way some people count prayers, slow, careful, exact. Fingers smooth the coin, lift it from one pocket, tuck it into an envelope marked school. The city slides past, a blur of signs and uniforms and faces that don't know her ledger of small refusals. She looks up at a school uniform poster, the way some people look at a distant sunrise, with longing that is practical and fierce. Every tiny saving is a step toward a future she refuses to trade for comfort today. Quietly, she keeps her accounts. Quietly, she keeps her vows. The factory mouth opens and swallows the morning. Workers stream in like a river with names, some loud, most quiet. Rosa blends into the current. Head down, hands working. She becomes part of the rhythm, the metallic breath of machines, the soft shuffle of boots. Tiko, small and bright as hope, is tucked like a secret beneath her arm. No one notices the way she folds herself thin to make room for a child's tomorrow. She is steady. She is reliable. She is careful. That care is invisible until it isn't. At her locker, the motions are practiced, a twist of the latch, a careful push, the hush of a lid closing. Inside, a dented thermos, empty as a promise kept. She smooths a creased wrapper with hands that know the economy of patience. The lunch she brings is not always the lunch she eats. She slides the thermos in as if tucking away an ache, neat, decisive, private. There's pride in that concealment, the pride of someone who prefers dignity over pity. Quiet clink, quiet resolve. She learned, long ago, how to hide hunger like a useful tool. Something warms in the smallest place, Tiko's zipper. A nearly imperceptible glow blooms along a seam, like a memory remembering itself. Dust motes wake and turn golden for a second. An old stitch, stitched by hands that knew want, exhales a tiny light. It is not magic so much as a quiet unlocking, an insistence that objects hold stories the way people carry names. The light gathers and the air hushes, and a memory slips through like a photograph sliding out of an envelope, quiet, exact, and tender. She is small again, knees to the table, feet not touching the floor, watching her mother with the reverence a child reserves for the ways adults find love. Her mother lifts a steaming bowl and hands it to a neighbor, not because there is an audience, but because there is a neighbor. The little Rosa watches a trade that costs less than a headline and more than anyone can measure. Warmth for someone else, pride kept intact at their own empty table. The child learns that generosity can be an entire shape of dignity, and that smiling through hunger is a form of courage too. Back in the present, the memory folds itself into her chest like a small instruction manual. Rosa's fingers tremble on Tiko. Her breath comes a touch too fast. The coin envelope is folded a fraction. Tighter, the motion smaller and more secret. For a heartbeat she is unsteady, a woman made of small decisions pushed to the edge of endurance. And yet the glow from the backpack, that faint stitch light, reminds her of the lineage she carries, the quiet rules, the courage taught by example. She exhales, steadies, and sets her shoulders to the day again. The whistle blows and the room fills with ordinary noise, cups clinking, people laughing at jokes that don't cost anything. Rosa sits slightly apart, an island of practiced composure. Her plate is a promise left mostly untouched. She positions Tiko at her feet like a secret companion, small and bright in the corner of the table. Around her, the day unfolds in other people's mouths. She moves like someone protecting something fragile, a vow, a child's dignity, a future balanced on very small coins. Fatigue is not dramatic, it is discreet, cumulative, and then it is sudden. Rosa's knees give a very human protest. just enough to fold her forward. She slides into the bench, not in a collapse of storybook tragedy, but in the plain exhaustion of a body that has been very busy holding on. Tiko tips, a faint glow spilling like a small confession. The chatter drops like a curtain. Faces lean in. For a moment there is only the sound of air moving differently, of the room holding its breath with her. One hand moves without drama. A co-worker peels back a wrapper and slides half of a sandwich toward her like passing a tool. There is no fanfare, just directness. The polite economy of people who know one another's small needs. The gesture carries no pity. It carries an assumption that we are part of each other. Rosa wakes into that ordinary kindness the way you wake into light. She takes the food with two hands, embarrassed for a breath, then relieved the next. That single, soundless offering begins the soft undoing of her shame. One act begets another. A thermos is unscrewed, steam rises, and the pot of warmth is passed from hand to hand. Napkins move like quiet diplomats. Sandwich halves migrate across the table. In a chain of unremarkable, essential care, the room's color shifts. The harsh fluorescence soften into a golden pool around the bench. Tiko's stitches pulse a little brighter, as if recognizing that it is witnessing repair. Conversation begins in pockets, small exchanges that mend what silence had frayed. The ripple becomes a current. Dignity, that word people use grandly here, looks like hands reaching. Around that table, stories begin to surface like bread from an oven, ordinary, honest, necessary. A woman says, almost in passing, that sometimes breakfast is skipped to make rent. A man says he takes extra shifts for his mother's medicine. Rosa speaks, and her voice is small but sure, a memory of her mother, a bowl given away. These confessions are not pleas. They are the map of how people survive and hold one another. In the telling, there is a recognition that heals. We are not alone in our private reckonings. The foreman watches. He sees what everyone else has seen and whispers. A room of steady hands and silent debts. He speaks to a few senior workers, and they act without spectacle. A shelf appears, small and unbranded, and a jar that says only school fund. Coins drop with the simple sound of people choosing to be available to one another. It is leadership that does not require headlines. It is leadership that arranges the world to care. In that small gesture, an institution gives a little of its muscle to human needs. Food is offered again, not as charity, but as an unremarkable part of the day. Rosa accepts. And the first thing she notices is not the meal, but the way her face unclenches. A co-worker takes her hand and squeezes. It is a small benediction. Tiko's seems to pulse in recognition, like an old friend approving of the repair. No one asks for her explanation, and she doesn't give one. Dignity returns not in speeches or solutions, but in the quiet act of being seen and staying in a seat among people who know how to share. The conversation shifts from confession to help. Names of shoe shops are exchanged. A reliable cobbler tucked into a corner is recommended. The name of a doctor who speaks plainly is passed along. People trade information the way others trade recipes, with the assumption that practical knowledge is love made usable. Rosa contributes a memory, and what was private becomes part of the group's wisdom. In these small trades, the table becomes a repair shop for dignity, stitches, tips, and the things people need to keep going. A shelf is a simple thing, a board and a promise, hands deposit wrapped sandwiches, a small note that says take what you need, a thermos for the morning, no names, no forms. The shelf says, whoever you are, if you need this, take it. It is a ritual born of necessity. It is a public act of private trust. People pass the word without sermon, and slowly the break room learns to hold abundance for those who will need it tomorrow. A small, ordinary altar for community care. At the end of the shift, she packs a sandwich like she packs a secret. This time, it is a sandwich made from the day's shared abundance. She tucks it into Tiko's pocket with hands that are more relaxed than before. The foreman drops a coin in the jar as he walks out. A co-worker waves. Someone calls a friendly goodbye. These are gestures that do not fix everything, but they weave the day into something that will hold tomorrow a little better. It is a small triumph, dignity preserved, ritual renewed. Dusk settles over familiar streets. Rosa walks with Tiko on her back and a warm bread tucked where the stitches can watch over it. Her son sees her first, a small figure running with the unhindered joy that only children seem to keep in reserve. He throws himself into her arms, and the hug is all the proof anyone needs that this was worth the day's quiet economies. Tiko's scene pulses softly as though happy to have done its small job. Home answers her name with laughter and a small, ordinary feast. Morning returns, and with it the new routines that will become normal. A worker leaves a sandwich on the shelf. Another pins a note about school supplies. People glance at the jar, smile, and move on. Tiko sits by the shelf like a small sentinel, seems softly glowing as if to say, "This is what we do here." The community has shifted a degree, not by law or proclamation, but by repeated, ordinary acts. Safety nets grow in little stitches. Life goes on, steadier than before. We close where we began, with a small stitch of human kindness that became a habit, a table that became a place of repair, a shelf that speaks without asking. Rosa, her son, the small group at the shelf, they look at one another with a kind of quiet triumph that needs no parade. There's a compass badge on Tiko that catches a final glint of light, a small emblem for the small moral of the story. Homework for a better world. Homework, dignity is not silence. If this warmed you, sit with someone today. Offer what you can. Follow for more stories.